Do you want to know what is the Triffin dilemma?
Triffin dilemma? No. Yes, I
Papa?
would like to know about that.
Okay. The Triffin dilemma happens, and I'm going to explain this in the simplest way I can. When an international currency, let's say like the US dollar, becomes very hard to import and export, and if they print too much money to export it, then it would cross inflation. What inflation happens is basically when there's too much money becomes less valuable.
Yeah.
Okay, but but if they cut off with internationally, some of the part of the international economy would crumble if they do that.
Yeah.
But sticking with it would also be bad and cause inflation. So it depends for long term and short term. Long term, it's bad to stay with the international, but short term, it's good to stay with the international.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
and that's
So
the
what is this
Triffin
called?
dilemma. The Triffin dilemma.
Triffin dilemma. Okay. So it's like a paradox. We also call it paradox in economics.
A paradox isn't a dilemma. It's when one thing contradicts another thing, like the grandfather paradox. This isn't a paradox, it's a dilemma.
What's a grandfather paradox?
Okay, the grandfather, let's say you have a time machine and you went back in time to kill your grandfather for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay.
If you killed your grandfather though, then your parents never would have. Then one of your parents would have never existed. But then you wouldn't even exist. But then how could you get the time machine? But if you didn't exist, how could you get the time machine to kill your grandfather in the first place?
I think these are three different events, right? And all these events are preceding grandfather, father, and son or daughter, right?
Yeah.
So this one event triggers the other event.
Yeah.
And then the third event. So a grandson or a grandchild is actually the third event, which is triggered from second and which was triggered from the first one.
Yeah.
So the third event cannot go back to the first event on a timeline.
Okay, but like
Yeah.
what happens if your grandfather is just dead? Like you kill them for a time machine?
No, because you can't, because it came out of that,
If you got a time machine.
Yeah, but time machine would not nullify one event or make one event dependent on the other. It is on the forward direction. If you look at the arrow,
I mean, before
the arrow is
you
coming
were
in the front.
before you were born, and your grandfather was like a babe, you killed him. You killed him when your grandfather.
So that means I'm killing the possibilities, right?
Yeah.
Grandfather becoming a scientist or grandfather becoming a...
So then your father wouldn't exist, and if your father didn't exist, then you can't exist.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but then if you killed them and then you didn't exist, how would you get the time machine or exist?
You are saying that the present needs to kill the past.
I'm not saying it needs to.
That's what you're implying in this paradox.
I'm not implying
that the present has to.
I'm not saying
rewrite
it has
the past.
to.
No, kind of this paradox or this theory says that you go and alter the past, right?
Yeah, and it
but
changes
our past
something.
has already happened.
Yeah, but then you
So
take
we
the
cannot
time machine.
alter something that early occurred.
Okay, but
Yeah.
it's a
So
time
this
machine.
time machine is it should be a time machine. It should be an event machine, or it should be space machine, so that you go back in space. I think a space machine should be there, not a time machine. What do you think?
No, I mean you go in the time machine. You go back in time to meet your grandfather.
So that means you're traveling, right?
Yes.
So traveling would mean what? You are going back in space.
You're not going back in space. Time and space is a different dimension.
Okay.
Yes, time is a different dimension.
Okay.
There are 3 dimensions in space,
Yeah.
but 1 dimension in time. Like you can only go straight in time. The faster you go in the space dimension, the slower you go in the time dimension. And in time dimension, you can only move forward. If you're standing perfectly still, you would go at light speed in the time dimension.
Okay.
But if you went at the speed of light,
I just want a hug because I am not a science graduate. So non-science graduates just believe in hugging each other, and hug is important.